HarperCollins presents the Railway Series, Volume 1 by the Reverend W. Awdry, read by Bruce Alexander. The Three Railway Engines. Edward's Day Out. Once upon a time there was a little engine called Edward. He lived in a shed with 5 other engines. They were all bigger than Edward and boasted about it. "The driver won't choose you again," they said. "He wants big, strong engines like us." Edward had not been up for a long time. He began to feel sad. Just then the driver and fireman came along to start work. The driver looked at Edward. "Why are you sad?" he asked. "Would you like to come out today?" "Yes, please," said Edward. So the fireman lit the fire and made a nice lot of steam. Then the driver pulled the lever, and Edward puffed away. "Beep, beep," he whistled. "Look at me now." The others were very cross at being left behind. Away went Edward to get some coaches. "Be careful, Edward," said the coaches. "Don't bump and bang us like the other engines do." So Edward came up to the coaches very, very gently, and the shunter fastened the coupling. "Thank you, Edward," said the coaches. "That was kind. We're glad you are taking us today." Then they went to the station where the people were waiting. "Beep, beep," whistled Edward. "Get in quickly, please." So the people got in quickly, and Edward waited happily for the guard to blow his whistle and wave his green flag. He waited and waited. There was no whistle, no green flag. "Beep, beep, beep, beep. Where is that guard?" Edward was getting anxious. The driver and fireman asked the station master, "Have you seen the guard?" "No," he said. They asked the porter, "Have you seen the guard?" "Yes, last night," said the porter. Edward began to get cross. "Are we ever going to start?" he said. Just then a little boy shouted, "Here he comes!" And there the guard was, running down the hill with his flags in one hand and a sandwich in the other. He ran onto the platform, blew his whistle, and jumped into his van. Edward puffed off. He did have a happy day. All the children ran to wave as he went past, and he met old friends at all the stations. He worked so hard that the driver promised to take him out again next day. "I'm going out again tomorrow," he told the other engines that night in the shed. "What do you think of that?" But he didn't hear what they thought, for he was so tired and happy that he fell asleep at once. Edward and Gordon. One of the engines in Edward's shed was called Gordon. He was very big and very proud. "You watch me this afternoon, little Edward," he boasted, "as I rush through with the express. That'll be a splendid sight for you." Just then his driver pulled the lever. "Goodbye, little Edward," said Gordon as he puffed away. "Look out for me this afternoon." Edward went off too, to do some shunting. Edward liked shunting. It was fun playing with trucks. He would come up quietly and give them a pull. "Oh, oh, 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 oh," screamed the trucks. "Whatever is happening?" Then he would stop and the silly trucks would go bump into each other. "Oh, oh, oh, oh," they cried again. Edward pushed them until they were running nicely, and when they weren't expecting it, he would stop, and one of them would be sure to run on to another line. Edward played till there were no more trucks. Then he stopped to rest. Presently he heard a whistle. Gordon came puffing along very slowly and very crossly. Instead of nice shining coaches, he was pulling a lot of very dirty coal trucks. "A goods train, a goods train, a goods train," he grumbled. "The shame of it, the shame of it, the shame of it." He went slowly through with the trucks clattering and banging behind him. Edward laughed and went to find some more trucks. Soon afterwards a porter came and spoke to his driver. "Gordon can't get up the hill. Will you take Edward and push him, please?" They found Gordon halfway up the hill and very cross. His driver and fireman were talking to him severely. "You're not trying," they told him. "I can't do it," said Gordon. "The noisy trucks hold an engine back so. If they were coaches now, clean, sensible things that come quietly, that would be different. Edward's driver came up. "We've come to push," he said. "No use at all," said Gordon. "You wait and see," said Edward's driver. They brought the train back to the bottom of the hill. Edward came up behind the brake van, ready to push. "Beep, beep, I'm ready," said Edward. "Boo, boo, no good," grumbled Gordon. The guard blew his whistle, and they pulled and pushed as hard as they could. "I can't do it, I can't do it, I can't do it," puffed Gordon. "I will do it, I will do it, I will do it," puffed Edward. "I can't do it, I will do it, I can't do it, I will do it, I can't do it, I will do it," they puffed together. Edward pushed and puffed and puffed and pushed as hard as ever he could, and almost before he realized it, Gordon found himself at the top of the hill. "I've done it! I've done it! I've done it!" he said proudly, and forgot all about Edward pushing behind. He didn't wait to say thank you, but ran on so fast that he passed 2 stations before his driver could make him stop. Edward had pushed so hard that when he got to the top, he was out of breath. Gordon ran on so fast that Edward was left behind. The guard waved and waved, but Edward couldn't catch up. He ran on to the next station, and there the driver and fireman said they were very pleased with him. The fireman gave him a nice long drink of water, and the driver said, "I'll get out my paint tomorrow and give you a beautiful new coat of blue with red stripes. Then you'll be the smartest engine in the shed." The Sad Story of Henry. Once an engine attached to a train was afraid of a few drops of rain. It went into a tunnel and squeaked through its funnel and never came out again. The engine's name was Henry. His driver and fireman argued with him, but he would not move. "The rain will spoil my lovely green paint and red stripes," he said. The guard blew his whistle till he had no more breath, and waved his flags till his arms ached. But Henry still stayed in the tunnel and blew steam at him. "I'm not going to spoil my lovely green paint and red stripes for you," he said rudely. The passengers came and argued too, but Henry would not move. A fat director who was on the train told the guard to get a rope. "We will pull you out," he said. But Henry only blew steam at him and made him wet. They hooked the rope on, and all pulled, except the fat director. "My doctor has forbidden me to pull," he said. They pulled and pulled and pulled, but still Henry stayed in the tunnel. Then they tried pushing from the other end. The fat director said, "1, 2, 3, push," but did not help. "My doctor has forbidden me to push," he said. They pushed and pushed and pushed, but still Henry stayed in the tunnel. At last another train came. The guard waved his red flag and stopped it. The 2 engine drivers, the fireman, and the 2 guards went and argued with Henry. "Look, it has stopped raining," they said. "Yes, but it'll begin again soon," said Henry. "And what will become of my green paint with red stripes then?" So they brought the other engine up, and it pushed and puffed and pushed as hard as ever it could. But still Henry stayed in the tunnel. So they gave it up. They told Henry, "We shall leave you there for always and always and always." They took up the old rails, built a wall in front of him, and cut a new tunnel. Now Henry can't get out, and he watches the trains rushing through the new tunnel. He's very sad, because no one will ever see his lovely green paint with red stripes again. But I think he deserved it. Don't you? Edward, Gordon, and Henry. Edward and Gordon often went through the tunnel where Henry was shut up. Edward would say, "Beep, beep, hello," and Gordon would say, "Boop, boop, boop, serves you right." Poor Henry had no steam to answer. His fire had gone out. Soot and dirt from the tunnel roof had spoiled his lovely green paint and red stripes. He was cold and unhappy and wanted to come out and pull trains too. Gordon always pulled the express. He was proud of being the only engine strong enough to do it. There were many heavy coaches full of important people like the fat director who had punished Henry. Gordon was seeing how fast he could go. "Hurry, hurry, hurry," he panted. "Trickety-trock, trickety-trock, trickety-trock," said the coaches. Gordon could see Henry's funnel in front. In a minute, he thought, "I'll poop, poop, poop at Henry and rush through and out into the open again." Closer and closer he came. He was almost there when... crack! Whee-sh! He was in a cloud of steam and going slower and slower. His driver stopped the train. "What has happened to me?" asked Gordon. "I feel so weak." "You've burst your safety valve," said the driver. "You can't pull the train any more." "Oh dear," said Gordon. "We were going so nicely too. Look at Henry laughing at me." Gordon made a face at Henry and blew smoke at him. Everybody got out and came to see Gordon. "Humph," said the fat director. "I never liked these big engines, always going wrong. Send for another engine at once." While the guard went to find one, they uncoupled Gordon and ran him on a siding out of the way. The only engine left in the shed was Edward. "I'll come and try," he said. Gordon saw him coming. "That's no use," he said. "Edward can't pull the train." Edward puffed and pulled and pulled and puffed, but he couldn't move the heavy coaches. "I told you so," said Gordon rudely. "Why not let Henry try?" "Yes," said the fat director, "I will." "Will you help pull this train, Henry?" he asked. "Yes," said Henry, at once. So Gordon's driver and fireman lit his fire, some plate layers broke down the wall and put back the rails, and when he had steam up, Henry puffed out. He was dirty. His boiler was black, and he was covered with cobwebs. "Oh, I'm so stiff! Oh, I'm so stiff!" he groaned. "You'd better have a run to ease your joints and find a turntable," said the fat director kindly. Henry came back feeling better, and they put him in front. "Beep, beep," said Edward. "I'm ready." "Beep, beep, beep," said Henry. "So am I." "Pull hard, pull hard, pull hard," puffed Edward. "We'll do it, we'll do it, we'll do it," puffed Henry. "Pull hard, we'll do it. Pull hard, we'll do it. Pull hard, we'll do it," they puffed together. The heavy coaches jerked and began to move, slowly at first, then faster and faster. "We've done it together, we've done it together, we've done it together," said Edward and Henry. "You've done it, hooray, you've done it, hooray, you've done it, hooray," sang the coaches. All the passengers were excited. The fat director leaned out of the window to wave to Edward and Henry, but the train was going so fast that his hat blew off into a field where a goat ate it for his tea. They never stopped till they came to the big station at the end of the line. The passengers all got out and said thank you, and the fat director promised Henry a new coat of paint. "Would you like blue and red?" "Yes, please," said Henry. "Then I'll be like Edward." Edward and Henry went home quietly, and on their way they helped Gordon back to the shed. All three engines are now great friends. Wasn't Henry pleased when he had his new coat? He's very proud of it, as all good engines are, but he doesn't mind the rain now because he knows that the best way to keep his paint nice is not to run into tunnels, but to ask his driver to rub him down when the day's work is over. Thomas the Tank Engine. Dear Christopher, here is your friend Thomas the Tank Engine. He wanted to come out of his station yard and see the world. These stories tell you how he did it. I hope you will like them, because you helped me to make them. Your loving Daddy. Thomas and Gordon. Thomas was a tank engine who lived at a big station. He had 6 small wheels, a short stumpy funnel, a short stumpy boiler, and a short stumpy dome. He was a fussy little engine, always pulling coaches about. He pulled them to the station ready for the big engines to take out on long journeys, and when trains came in and the people had got out, he would pull the empty coaches away so that the big engines could go and rest. He was a cheeky little engine, too. He thought no engine worked as hard as he did, so he used to play tricks on them. He liked best of all to come quietly beside a big engine dozing on a siding and make him jump. Beep, 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 beep. Wake up, lazy bones, he would whistle. Why don't you work hard like me? Then he would laugh rudely and run away to find some more coaches. One day, Gordon was resting on a siding. He was very tired. The big express he always pulled had been late, and he'd had to run as fast as he could to make up for lost time. He was just going to sleep when Thomas came up in his cheeky way. "Wake up, lazy bones," he whistled. "Do some hard work for a change. You can't catch me." And he ran off, laughing. Instead of going to sleep again, Gordon thought how he could pay Thomas out. One morning, Thomas wouldn't wake up. His driver and fireman couldn't make him start. His fire went out, and there was not enough steam. It was nearly time for the express. The people were waiting, but the coaches weren't ready. At last Thomas started. "Oh dear," he yawned. "Come on," said the coaches. "Hurry up." Thomas gave them a rude bump and started for the station. "Don't stop dawdling, he grumbled. Where have you been? Asked the coaches crossly. Thomas fussed into the station where Gordon was waiting. "Boop, boop, boop. Hurry up, you," said Gordon crossly. "Beep, beep, beep. Hurry yourself," said cheeky Thomas. "Yes," said Gordon, "I will." And almost before the coaches had stopped moving, Gordon came out of his siding and was coupled to the train. "Boop, boop," he whistled. "Get in quickly, please." So the people got in quickly. The signal went down. The clock struck the hour. The guard waved his green flag, and Gordon was ready to start. Thomas usually pushed behind the big trains to help them start, but he was always uncoupled first, so that when the train was running nicely he could stop and go back. This time he was late, and Gordon started so quickly that they forgot to uncouple Thomas. "Boop, boop," said Gordon. "Beep, beep, beep," whistled Thomas. Come on," puffed Gordon to the coaches. Pull harder," puffed Thomas to Gordon. The heavy train slowly began to move out of the station. The train went faster and faster. Too fast for Thomas. He wanted to stop, but he couldn't. "Beep, beep, stop," he whistled. Hurry, laughed Gordon in front. You can't get away, laughed the coaches. Poor Thomas was going faster than he had ever gone before. He was out of breath, and his wheels hurt him, but he had to go on. "I shall never be the same again," he thought sadly. "My wheels will be quite worn out." At last they stopped at a station. Everyone laughed to see Thomas puffing and panting behind. They uncoupled him, put him onto a turntable, and then he ran on a siding out of the way. "Well, little Thomas," chuckled Gordon as he passed, "now you know what hard work means, don't you?" Poor Thomas couldn't answer. He had no breath. He just puffed slowly away to rest and had a long, long drink. He went home very slowly and was careful afterwards never to be cheeky to Gordon again. Thomas's train. Thomas often grumbled because he was not allowed to pull passenger trains. The other engines laughed. "You're too impatient," they said. "You'll be sure to leave something behind." "Rubbish," said Thomas crossly. "You just wait, I'll show you." One night he and Henry were alone. Henry was ill. The men worked hard, but he didn't get better. Now Henry usually pulled the first train in the morning, and Thomas had to get his coaches ready. "If Henry is ill," he thought, "perhaps I shall pull his train." Thomas ran to find the coaches. Come along, he fussed. There's plenty of time, grumbled the coaches. He took them to the platform and wanted to run round in front at once, but his driver wouldn't let him. "Don't be impatient, Thomas," he said. So Thomas waited and waited. The people got in, the garden station master walked up and down, the porters banged the doors, and still Henry didn't come. Thomas got more and more excited every minute. The fat director came out of his office to see what was the matter, and the guard and the station master told him about Henry. "Find another engine," he ordered. "Well, there's only Thomas," they said. "You'll have to do it then, Thomas. Be quick now." So Thomas ran round to the front and back down on the coaches, ready to start. "Don't be impatient," said his driver. "Wait till everything is ready." But Thomas was too excited to listen to a word he said. What happened then, no one knows. Perhaps they forgot to couple Thomas to the train. Perhaps Thomas was too impatient to wait till they were ready. Or perhaps his driver pulled the lever by mistake. Anyhow, Thomas started. People shouted and waved at him, but he didn't stop. "They're waving because I'm such a splendid engine," he thought importantly. "Henry says it's hard to pull trains, but I think it's easy. Hurry, hurry, hurry," he puffed, pretending to be like Gordon. As he passed the first signal box, he saw the men leaning out and waving and shouting. "They're pleased to see me," he thought. "They've never seen me pulling a train before. It's nice of them to wave." And he whistled, "Beep, beep, thank you," and hurried on. But he came to a signal at danger. "Bother," he thought. "I must stop, and I was going so nicely too. What a nuisance signals are." And he blew an angry beep, beep on his whistle. One of the signalmen ran up. "Hello, Thomas," he said. "What are you doing here?" "I'm pulling a train," said Thomas proudly. "Can't you see?" "Where are your coaches, then?" Thomas looked back. "Why, bless me," he said, "if we haven't left them behind." "Yes," said the signalman. "You'd better go back quickly and fetch them." Poor Thomas was so sad he nearly cried. "Cheer up," said his driver. "Let's go back quickly and try again." At the station, all the passengers were talking at once. They were telling the fat director, the station master, and the guard what a bad railway it was. But when Thomas came back and they saw how sad he was, they couldn't be cross. So they coupled him to the train, and this time he really pulled it. But for a long time afterwards, the other engines laughed at Thomas and said, "Oh, look, there's Thomas, who wanted to pull a train, but forgot about the coaches." Thomas and the Trucks. Thomas used to grumble in the shed at night. "I'm tired of pushing coaches. I want to see the world." The others didn't take much notice, for Thomas was a little engine with a long tongue. But one night Edward came to the shed. He was a kind little engine and felt sorry for Thomas. "I've got some trucks to take home tomorrow," he told them. "If you take them instead, I'll push coaches in the yard." "Thank you," said Thomas. "That will be nice." So they asked their drivers next morning, and when they said yes, Thomas ran happily to find the trucks. Now, trucks are silly and noisy. They talk a lot and don't attend to what they're doing. They don't listen to their engine, and when he stops, they bump into each other, screaming, "Oh, oh, 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 whatever is happening?" And I'm sorry to say they play tricks on an engine who is not used to them. Edward knew all about trucks. He warned Thomas to be careful, but Thomas was too excited to listen. The shunter fastened the coupling, and when the signal dropped, Thomas was ready. The guard blew his whistle. "Beep, beep," answered Thomas, and started off. But the trucks weren't ready. "Oh, oh, oh, oh," they screamed as their couplings tightened. "Wait, Thomas, wait!" But Thomas wouldn't wait. Come on, he puffed, and the trucks grumbled slowly out of the siding onto the main line. Thomas was happy. Come along, he puffed. "All right, don't fuss. All right, don't fuss," grumbled the trucks. They clattered through stations and rumbled over bridges. Thomas whistled, "Beep, beep," and they rushed through the tunnel in which Henry had been shut up. Then they came to the top of the hill, where Gordon had stuck. "Steady now, steady," warned the driver, and he shut off steam and began to put on the brakes. We're stopping, called Thomas. "No, no, no, no," answered the trucks, and bumped into each other. Go on! And before his driver could stop them, they had pushed Thomas down the hill and were rattling and laughing behind him. Poor Thomas tried hard to stop them from making him go too fast. Stop pushing, he hissed, but the trucks would not stop. Go on, they giggled in their silly way. He was glad when they got to the bottom. Then he saw in front the place where they had to stop. "Oh dear, what shall I do?" They rattled through the station, and luckily the line was clear as they swerved into the goods yard. "Ooh!" groaned Thomas as his brakes held fast and he skidded along the rails. "I must stop!" and he shut his eyes tight. When he opened them, he saw he'd stopped just in front of the buffers, and there watching him was the fat director. "What are you doing here, Thomas?" he asked sternly. "I've brought Edward's trucks," Thomas answered. "Why did you come so fast?" "I didn't mean to. I was pushed," said Thomas sadly. "Haven't you pulled trucks before?" "No." "Then you've a lot to learn about trucks, little Thomas. They are silly things and must be kept in their place. After pushing them about here for a few weeks, you'll know almost as much about them as Edward. Then you'll be a really useful engine." Thomas and the Breakdown Train. Every day the fat director came to the station to catch his train, and he always said hello to Thomas. There were lots of trucks in the yard. Different ones came in every day, and Thomas had to push and pull them into their right places. He worked hard. He knew now that he wasn't so clever as he had thought. Besides, the fat director had been kind to him, and he wanted to learn all about trucks so as to be a really useful engine. But on a siding by themselves were some trucks that Thomas was told he mustn't touch. There was a small coach, some flat trucks, and two queer things his driver called cranes. "That's the breakdown train," he said. "When there's an accident, the workmen get into the coach, and the engine takes them quickly to help the hurt people and to clear and mend the line. The cranes are for lifting heavy things like engines and coaches and trucks." One day, Thomas was in the yard when he heard an engine whistling, "Help! Help!" and a goods train came rushing through much too fast. The engine, a new one called James, was frightened. His brake blocks were on fire, and smoke and sparks streamed out on each side. They're pushing me! He panted. On, laughed the trucks, and still whistling, "Help! Help!" poor James disappeared under a bridge. "I'd like to teach those trucks a lesson," said Thomas the tank engine. Presently a bell rang in the signal box, and a man came running. "James is off the line! The breakdown train! Quickly!" he shouted. So Thomas was coupled on, the workmen jumped into their coach, and off they went. Thomas worked his hardest. "Hurry, hurry, hurry!" he puffed, and this time he wasn't pretending to be like Gordon, he really meant it. "Bother those trucks and their tricks," he thought. "I hope poor James isn't hurt." They found James and the trucks at a bend in the line. The brake van and the last few trucks were on the rails, but the front ones were piled in a heap. James was in a field with a cow looking at him, and his driver and fireman were feeling him all over to see if he was hurt. "Never mind, James," they said. "It wasn't your fault. It was those wooden brakes they gave you. We always said they were no good." Thomas pushed the breakdown train alongside. Then he pulled the unhurt trucks out of the way. "Oh dear, oh dear," they groaned. "Serves you right, puffed Thomas crossly. When the men put other trucks on the line, he pulled them away too. He was hard at work, puffing backwards and forwards all the afternoon. "This'll teach you a lesson, this'll teach you a lesson," he told the trucks, and they answered, "Yes, it will, in a sad, groany, creaky sort of voice. They left the broken trucks and mended the line. Then with 2 cranes they put James back on the rails. He tried to move, but he couldn't, so Thomas helped him back to the shed. The fat director was waiting anxiously for them. "Well, Thomas," he said kindly, "I've heard all about it, and I'm very pleased with you. You're a really useful engine. James shall have some proper brakes and a new coat of paint, and you shall have a branch line all to yourself." "Oh, sir," said Thomas, happily. Now Thomas is as happy as can be. He has a branch line all to himself, and puffs proudly backwards and forwards with 2 coaches all day. He's never lonely, 'cause there's always some engine to talk to at the junction. Edward and Henry stop quite often and tell him the news. Gordon is always in a hurry and does not stop, but he never forgets to say "boop, boop" to little Thomas, and Thomas always whistles "beep, beep" in return. James and the Red Engine. Dear friends of Edward, Gordon, Henry and Thomas, thank you for your kind letters. Here is the new book for which you asked. James, who crashed into the story of Thomas the Tank Engine, settles down and becomes a useful engine. We're nationalised now, but the same engines still work the region. I am glad, too, to tell you that the fat director, who understands our friends' ways, is still in charge, but is now the fat controller. I hope you'll enjoy this book, too. The author. James and the Top Hat. James was a new engine who lived at a station at the other end of the line. He had 2 small wheels in front and 6 driving wheels behind. They weren't as big as Gordon's, and they weren't as small as Thomas's. "You're a special mixed-traffic engine," the fat controller told him. "You'll be able to pull coaches or trucks quite easily." But trucks are not easy things to manage, and on his first day they'd pushed him down a hill into a field. He'd been ill after the accident, but now he had new brakes and a shining coat of red paint. "The red paint will cheer you up after your accident," said the fat controller kindly. "You are to pull coaches today, and Edward shall help you." They went together to find the coaches. "Be careful with the coaches, James," said Edward. "They don't like being bumped. Trucks are silly and noisy. They need to be bumped and taught to behave, but coaches get cross and will pay you out." They took the coaches to the platform and were both coupled on in front. The fat controller, the station master, and some little boys all came to admire James's shining rods and red paint. James was pleased. "I'm a really splendid engine," he thought, and suddenly let off steam. Whee-shh! The fat controller, the station master, and the guard all jumped, and a shower of water fell on the fat controller's nice new top hat. Just then the whistle blew, and James thought they'd better go. So they went. Go on, go on, he puffed to Edward. Don't push, puffed Edward, for he did not like starting quickly. Don't go so fast, grumbled the coaches. But James did not listen. He wanted to run away before the fat controller could call him back. He didn't even want to stop at the first station. Edward tried hard to stop, but the two coaches in front were beyond the platform before they stopped, and they had to go back to let the passengers get out. Lots of people came to look at James, and as no one seemed to know about the fat controller's top hat, James felt happier. Presently they came to the junction, where Thomas was waiting with his two coaches. "Hello, James," said Thomas kindly. "Feeling better? That's right. Ah, that's my guard's whistle. I must go. Sorry I can't stop. I don't know what the fat controller would do without me to run this branch line." And he puffed off importantly with his two coaches into a tunnel. Leaving the junction, they passed the field where James had had his accident. The fence was mended, and the cows were back again. James whistled, but they paid no attention. They clattered through Edward's station yard and started to climb the hill beyond. It's ever so steep, puffed James. I've done it before, puffed Edward. It's steep, but we'll do it, the two engines puffed together as they pulled the train up the long hill. They both rested at the next station. Edward told James how Gordon had stuck on the hill, and he'd had to push him up. James laughed so much that he got hiccups and surprised an old lady in a black bonnet. She dropped all her parcels, and 3 porters, the station master and the guard, had to run after her, picking them up. James was quiet in the shed that night. He had enjoyed his day, but he was a little afraid of what the fat controller would say about the top hat. James and the bootlace. Next morning the fat controller spoke severely to James. "If you can't behave, I shall take away your red coat and have you painted blue." James did not like that at all, and he was very rough with the coaches as he brought them to the platform. Come along, he called rudely. All in good time, the coaches grumbled. "Don't talk, come on," answered James, and with the coaches squealing and grumbling after him, he snorted into the station. James was cross that morning. The fat controller had spoken to him. The coaches had dawdled, and, worst of all, he'd had to fetch his own coaches. Gordon never does, thought James, and he's only painted blue. A splendid red engine like me should never have to fetch his own coaches. And he puffed and snorted round to the front of the train and backed onto it with a rude bump. "Ooh!" groaned the coaches. "That was too bad." To make James even more cross, he then had to take the coaches to a different platform where no one came near him as he stood there. The fat controller was in his office. The station master was at the other end of the train with the guard, and even the little boy stood a long way off. James felt lonely. "I'll show them," he said to himself. "They think Gordon is the only engine who can pull coaches." And as soon as the guard's whistle blew, he started off with a tremendous jerk. Come on, he puffed, and the coaches, squeaking and groaning in protest, clattered over the points onto the open line. Hurry, puffed James. You're going too fast, said the coaches, and indeed they were going so fast that they swayed from side to side. James laughed and tried to go faster, but the coaches wouldn't let him. We're going to stop, they said, and James found himself going slower and slower. What's the matter? James asked his driver. The brakes are hard on. Leak in the pipe, most likely. You bang those coaches enough to make a leak in anything. The guard and the driver got down and looked at the brake pipes all along the train. At last they found a hole where rough treatment had made a joint work loose. "How shall we mend it?" said the guard. James, his driver, thought for a moment. "We'll do it with newspapers and a leather bootlace." "Well, where is the bootlace coming from?" asked the guard. "We haven't one." "Ask the passengers," said the driver. So the guard made everyone get out. "Has anybody got a leather bootlace?" he asked. They all said no, except one man in a bowler hat whose name was Jeremiah Jobling, who tried to hide his feet. "You have a leather bootlace there, I see, sir," said the guard. "Please give it to me." "I won't," said Jeremiah Jobling. "Then," said the guard sternly, "I'm afraid this train will just stop where it is." Then the passengers all told the guard, the driver, and the fireman what a bad railway it was. But the guard climbed into his van, and the driver and the fireman made James let off steam. So they all told Jeremiah Jobling he was a bad man instead. At last he gave them his laces. The driver tied a pad of newspapers tightly round the hole, and James was able to pull the train. But he was a sadder and a wiser James, and took care never to bump coaches again. Troublesome Trucks. James did not see the fat controller for several days. They left James alone in the shed, and did not even allow him to go out and push coaches and trucks in the yard. "Oh dear," he thought sadly, "I'll never be allowed out any more. I shall have to stay in this shed for always, and no one will ever see my red coat again. Oh dear, oh dear." James began to cry. Just then the fat controller came along. "I see you are sorry, James," he said. "I hope now that you will be a better engine. You have given me a lot of trouble. People are laughing at my railway, and I do not like that at all." "I'm very sorry, sir," said James. "I will try hard to behave." "That's a good engine," said the fat controller kindly. "I want you to pull some trucks for me. Run along and find them." So James puffed happily away. "Here are your trucks, James," said a little tank engine. "Have you got some bootlaces ready?" And he ran off laughing rudely. "Oh, oh, oh," said the trucks, as James backed down on them. "We want a proper engine, not a red monster." James took no notice and started as soon as the guard was ready. Come along, he puffed. We won't, screamed the trucks. But James didn't care, and he pulled the screeching trucks sternly out of the yard. The trucks tried hard to make him give up, but he still kept on. Sometimes their brakes would slip on, and sometimes their axles would run hot. Each time they would have to stop and put the trouble right, and each time James would start again, determined not to let the trucks beat him. Give up, you can't pull us, you can't, called the trucks. I can and I will, puffed James, and slowly but surely he pulled them along the line. At last they saw Gordon's Hill ahead. Look out for trouble, James, warned his driver. We'll go fast and get them up before they know it. Don't let them stop you. So James went faster, and they were soon halfway up the hill. I'm doing it, he panted, but it was hard work. Will the top never come, he thought, when with a sudden jerk it all came easier. I've done it, he puffed triumphantly. Hurrah, he thought, it's easy now. But his driver shut off steam. They've done it again, he said. We've left our tail behind. The last 10 trucks were running backwards down the hill. The coupling had snapped. But the guard was brave. Very carefully and cleverly he made them stop, and then he got out and walked down the line with his red flag. That's why it was easy, said James, as he backed the other trucks carefully down. What silly things trucks are! There might have been an accident. Meanwhile, the guard had stopped Edward, who was pulling 3 coaches. "Shall I help you, James?" called Edward. "No, thank you," answered James. "I'll pull them myself." "Good. Don't let them beat you." So James got ready, and then with a beep, beep, he was off. "I can do it. I can do it," he puffed. He pulled and puffed as hard as he could. Beep, 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 beep. "You're doing well," whistled Edward, as James slowly struggled up the hill with clouds of smoke and steam pouring from his funnel. "I've done it! I've done it!" he panted, and disappeared over the top. They reached their station safely. James was resting in the yard when Edward puffed by with a cheerful beep, beep, and then walking towards him across the rails, James saw the Fat Controller. "Oh dear, what will he say?" he asked himself sadly. But the Fat Controller was smiling. "I was in Edward's train and saw everything," he said. "You've made the most troublesome trucks on the line behave. After that, you deserve to keep your red coat." James and the Express. Sometimes Gordon and Henry slept in James's shed, and they would talk of nothing but bootlaces. James would talk about engines who got shut up in tunnels and stuck on hills, but they wouldn't listen, and went on talking and laughing. "You talk too much, little James," Gordon would say. "A strong, fine engine like me has something to talk about. I'm the only engine who can pull the Express. When I'm not there, they need 2 engines. Think of that." "I've pulled expresses for years and have never once lost my way. I seem to know the right line by instinct," said Gordon proudly. Every wise engine knows, of course, that the signalman works the points to make engines run on the right lines, but Gordon was so proud that he had forgotten. "Wake up, James," he said next morning. "It's nearly time for the Express. What are you doing? Odd jobs? Ha ha! Well, we all have to begin somewhere, don't we? Run along now and get my coaches. Don't be late now." James went to get Gordon's coaches. They were now all shining with lovely new paint. He was careful not to bump them, and they followed him smoothly into the station, singing happily, "We're going away, we're going away." "I wish I was going with you," said James. "I should love to pull the Express and go flying along the line." He left them in the station and went back to the yard, just as Gordon, with much noise and blowing of steam, backed onto the train. The Fat Controller was on the train with other important people, and as soon as they heard the guard's whistle, Gordon started. "Look at me now! Look at me now!" he puffed, and the coaches glided after him out of the station. "Boop, boop, 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 boop! Goodbye, little James! See you tomorrow!" James watched the train disappear round a curve, and then went back to work. He pushed some trucks into their proper sidings and went to fetch the coaches for another train. He brought the coaches to the platform and was just being uncoupled when he heard a mournful, quiet shh, 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 shh. And there was Gordon trying to sidle into the station without being noticed. "Hello, Gordon. Is it tomorrow?" asked James. Gordon didn't answer. He just let off steam feebly. "Did you lose your way, Gordon?" "No, it was lost for me," he answered crossly. "I was switched off the main line onto the loop. I had to go all round and back again." "Perhaps it was instinct," said James brightly. Meanwhile, all the passengers hurried to the booking office. "We want our money back," they shouted. Everyone was making a noise, but the Fat Controller climbed on a trolley and blew the guard's whistle so loudly that they all stopped to look at him. Then he promised them a new train at once. "Gordon can't do it," he said. "Will you pull it for us, James?" "Yes, sir, I'll try." So James was coupled on, and everyone got in again. "Do your best, James," said the Fat Controller kindly. Just then the whistle blew, and he had to run to get in. "Come along, puffed James. "You're pulling us well, you're pulling us well," sang the coaches. "Hurry, hurry, hurry," puffed James. Stations and bridges flashed by. The passengers leaned out of the windows and cheered, and they soon reached the terminus. Everyone said thank you to James. "Well done," said the Fat Controller. "Would you like to pull the express sometimes?" "Yes, please," answered James happily. Next day, when James came by, Gordon was pushing trucks in the yard. "I like some quiet work for a change," he said. "I'm teaching these trucks manners. You did well with those coaches, I hear. Good, we'll show them." And he gave his trucks a bump, making them cry, "Ooh, ooh, ooh, ooh." James and Gordon are now good friends. James sometimes takes the express to give Gordon a rest. Gordon never talks about bootlaces, and they are both quite agreed on the subject of trucks. Tank Engine Thomas again. Dear friends, here is news from Thomas's branch line. It is clearly no ordinary line, and life on it is far from dull. Thomas asked me to say that if you are ever in the region, you must be sure to visit him and travel on his line. They will have never seen anything like it, he says proudly. I know I haven't. The Author. Thomas and the Guard. Thomas the Tank Engine is very proud of his branch line. He thinks it is the most important part of the whole railway. He has 2 coaches. They are old and need new paint, but he loves them very much. He calls them Annie and Clarabelle. Annie can only take passengers, but Clarabelle can take passengers, luggage, and the guard. As they run backwards and forwards along the line, Thomas sings them little songs, and Annie and Clarabelle sing too. When Thomas starts from a station, he sings, "Oh, come along, we're rather late. Oh, come along, we're rather late." And the coaches sing, "We're coming along, we're coming along." They don't mind what Thomas says to them because they know he's trying to please the Fat Controller, and they know too that if Thomas is cross, he's not cross with them. He is cross with the engines on the main line who have made him late. One day they had to wait for Henry's train. It was late. Thomas was getting crosser and crosser. "How can I run my line properly if Henry is always late? He doesn't realize that the Fat Controller depends on me," and he whistled impatiently. At last Henry came. "Where have you been, lazy bones?" asked Thomas crossly. "Oh dear, my system is out of order. No one understands my case. You don't know what I suffer," moaned Henry. "Rubbish," said Thomas. "You're too fat. You need exercise." Lots of people with piles of luggage got out of Henry's train, and they all climbed into Annie and Clarabelle. Thomas had to wait till they were ready. At last the guard blew his whistle, and Thomas started at once. The guard turned round to jump into his van, tripped over an old lady's umbrella, and fell flat on his face. By the time he'd picked himself up, Thomas and Annie and Clarabelle were steaming out of the station. Come along, puffed Thomas. But Clarabelle didn't want to come. "I've lost my nice guard, I've lost my nice guard," she sobbed. Annie tried to tell Thomas, "We haven't a guard, we haven't a guard." But he was hurrying and wouldn't listen. Oh, come along, he puffed impatiently. Annie and Clarabelle tried to put on their brakes, but they couldn't without the guard. Where is our guard? Where is our guard? They cried. Thomas didn't stop till they came to a signal. Bother that signal, said Thomas. What's the matter? I don't know, said his driver. The guard'll tell us in a minute. They waited and waited, but the guard didn't come. Beep, 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 beep. Where is the guard? Whistled Thomas. We've left him behind, sobbed Annie and Clarabelle together. The driver, the fireman, and the passengers looked, and there was the guard running as fast as he could along the line, with his flags in one hand and his whistle in the other. Everybody cheered him. He was very hot, so he sat down and had a drink, and told them all about it. "I'm very sorry, Mr. Guard," said Thomas. "Wasn't your fault, Thomas. It was the old lady's umbrella. Look, the signal is down. Let's make up for lost time." Annie and Clarabel were so pleased to have their guard again that they sang, "As fast as you like, as fast as you like," to Thomas all the way, and they reached the end of the line quicker than ever before. Thomas goes fishing. Thomas's branch line had a station by a river. As he rumbled over the bridge, he would see people fishing. Sometimes they stood quietly by their lines. Sometimes they were actually jerking fish out of the water. Thomas often wanted to stay and watch, but his driver said, "No, what would the fat controller say if we were late?" Thomas thought it would be lovely to stop by the river. "I should like to go fishing," he said to himself, longingly. Every time he met another engine, he would say, "I want a fish." And they all answered, "Engines don't go fishing." "Silly stick-in-the-muds," he would snort impatiently. Thomas generally had to take in water at the station by the river. One day he stopped as usual, and his fireman put the pipe from the water tower in his tank. Then he turned the tap, but it was out of order, and no water came. "Bother," said Thomas. "I am thirsty." "Never mind," said his driver. "We'll get some water from the river." They found a bucket and some rope and went to the bridge. Then the driver let the bucket down to the water. The bucket was old and had 5 holes, so they had to fill it, pull it up, and empty it into Thomas's tank as quickly as they could. "There's a hole in my bucket, dear Liza," sang the fireman. "Never mind about Liza," said the driver. "You empty that bucket before you spill the water over me." They finished at last. That's good, puffed Thomas as he started, and Annie and Clarabel ran happily behind. They puffed along the valley and were in the tunnel when Thomas began to feel a pain in his boiler, while steam hissed from his safety valve in an alarming way. "There's too much steam," said his driver, and his fireman opened the tap in the feed pipe to let more water into the boiler, but none came. "Oh dear," groaned Thomas, I'm going to burst. They damped down his fire and struggled on. I've got such a pain, Thomas hissed. Just outside the last station they stopped, uncoupled Annie and Clarabel, and ran Thomas, who was still hissing fit to burst, on a siding right out of the way. Then while the guard telephoned for an engine inspector, and the fireman was putting out the fire, the driver wrote notices in large letters which he hung on Thomas in front and behind. "Danger! Keep away!" Soon the inspector and the fat controller arrived. "Cheer up, Thomas," they said. "We'll soon put you right." The driver told them what had happened. "So the feed pipe is blocked," said the inspector. "I'll just look in the tanks." He climbed up and peered in, and then he came down. "Excuse me, sir," he said to the fat controller. "Please look in the tank and tell me what you see." "Certainly, Inspector." He climbed up, looked in, and nearly fell off in surprise. "Inspector," he whispered, "can you see fish?" "Gracious goodness me," said the fat controller. "How did the fish get there, driver?" Thomas's driver scratched his head. "We must have fished them from the river," and he told them about the bucket. The fat controller laughed. "Well, Thomas, so you and your driver have been fishing, but fish don't suit you, and we must get them out." So the driver and the fireman fetched rods and nets, and they all took turns at fishing in Thomas's tank, while the fat controller told them how to do it. When they had caught all the fish, the station master gave them some potatoes, The driver borrowed a frying pan, while the fireman made a fire beside the line and did the cooking. Then they all had a lovely picnic supper of fish and chips. "That was good," said the fat controller as he finished his share. "But fish don't suit you, Thomas, so you mustn't do it again." "No, sir, I won't," said Thomas sadly. "Engines don't go fishing. It's too uncomfortable." Thomas, Terence, and the Snow. Autumn was changing the leaves from green to brown. The fields were changing too, from yellow stubble to brown earth. As Thomas puffed along, he heard the chug, chug, chug of a tractor at work. One day, stopping for a signal, he saw the tractor close by. "Hello," said the tractor. "I'm Terence. I'm ploughing." "I'm Thomas. I'm pulling a train. What ugly wheels you've got." "They're not ugly. They're caterpillars," said Terence. "I can go anywhere. I don't need rails." "I don't want to go anywhere," said Thomas huffily. "I like my rails, thank you." Thomas often saw Terence working, but though he whistled, Terence never answered. Winter came, and with it dark, heavy clouds full of snow. "I don't like it," said Thomas's driver. "A heavy fall is coming. I hope it doesn't stop us." "Pooh," said Thomas, seeing the snow melt on the rails. "Soft stuff, nothing to it," and he puffed on, feeling cold but confident. They finished their journey safely, but the country was covered, and the rails were two dark lines standing out in the white snow. "You'll need your snowplough for the next journey, Thomas," said his driver. "Pooh! Snow is silly, soft stuff. It won't stop me." "Listen to me," his driver replied. "We're going to fix your snowplough on, and I want no nonsense, please." The snowplough was heavy and uncomfortable, and made Thomas cross. He shook it, and he banged it, and when they got back, it was so damaged that the driver had to take it off. "You're a very naughty engine," said his driver, as he shut the shed door that night. Next morning, both driver and fireman came early and worked hard to mend the snowplough, but they couldn't make it fit properly. It was time for the first train. Thomas was pleased. "I shan't have to wear it. I shan't have to wear it," he puffed to Annie and Clarabel. "I hope it's all right. I hope it's all right," they whispered anxiously to each other. The driver was anxious too. "It's not bad here," he said to the fireman, "but it's sure to be deep in the valley." It was snowing again when Thomas started, but the rails were not covered. "Silly soft stuff, silly soft stuff," he puffed. "I didn't need that stupid old thing yesterday. I shan't today. Snow can't stop me." And he rushed into the tunnel, thinking how clever he was. At the other end he saw a heap of snow fallen from the sides of the cutting. "Silly old snow," said Thomas, and charged it. "Cinders and ashes," said Thomas. "I'm stuck." And he was. "Back, Thomas, back," said his driver. Thomas tried, but his wheels spun, and he couldn't move. More snow fell and piled up round him. The guard went back for help, while the driver, fireman, and passengers tried to dig the snow away. But as fast as they dug, more snow slipped down until Thomas was nearly buried. "Oh, my wheels and coupling rods," said Thomas sadly. "I shall have to stop here till I'm frozen. What a silly engine I am!" And Thomas began to cry. At last a tooting in the distance told them a bus had come for the passengers. Then Terence chugged through the tunnel. He pulled the empty coaches away and came back for Thomas. Thomas's wheels were clear, but still spun helplessly when he tried to move. Terence tugged and slipped and slipped and tugged, and at last dragged Thomas into the tunnel. "Thank you, Terence. Your caterpillars are splendid," said Thomas gratefully. "I hope you'll be sensible now, Thomas," said his driver severely. "I'll try," said Thomas as he puffed home. Thomas, and Bertie. One day Thomas was waiting at the junction when a bus came into the yard. "Hello," said Thomas. "Who are you?" "I'm Bertie. Who are you?" "I'm Thomas. I run this line." "So you're Thomas. Ah, I remember now. You stuck in the snow. I took your passengers and Terence pulled you out. I've come to help you with your passengers today." "Help me?" said Thomas crossly, going bluer than ever and letting off steam. "I can go faster than you." "You can't." "I can." "I'll race you," said Bertie. Their drivers agreed. The station master said, "Are you ready? Go!" And they were off. Thomas never could go fast at first, and Bertie drew in front. Thomas was running well, but he did not hurry. "Why don't you go fast? Why don't you go fast?" called Annie and Clarabel anxiously. "Wait and see, hissed Thomas. "He's a long way ahead, he's a long way ahead," they wailed. But Thomas didn't mind. He remembered the level crossing. And there was Bertie, fuming at the gates, while they sailed gaily through. "Goodbye, Bertie," called Thomas. The road left the railway and went through a village, so they couldn't see Bertie. They stopped at the station. "Beep, beep, beep! Quickly, please!" called Thomas. Everybody got out quickly. The guard whistled, and off they went. Come along, sang Thomas. We're coming along, sang Annie and Clarabel. Hurry, 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 panted Thomas, looking straight ahead. Then he whistled shrilly in horror, for Bertie was crossing the bridge over the railway, tooting triumphantly on his horn. "Oh, dearie me, groaned Thomas. "He's a long way in front, wailed Annie and Clarabel. "Steady, Thomas," said his driver. "We'll beat Bertie yet." We'll beat Bertie yet, echoed Annie and Clarabel. We'll do it, panted Thomas bravely. "Oh, bother, there's a station." As he stopped, he heard a toot. "Goodbye, Thomas, you must be tired. Sorry I can't stop. We buses have to work, you know. Goodbye." The next station was by the river. They got there quickly, but the signal was up. "Oh dear," thought Thomas, "we've lost." But he felt better after a drink. Then James rattled through with a goods train, and the signal dropped, showing the line was clear. "Hurrah, we're off! Hurrah, we're off!" puffed Thomas gaily. As they rumbled over the bridge, they heard an impatient toot, toot, and there was Bertie waiting at the red light, while cars and lorries crossed the narrow bridge in the opposite direction. Road and railway ran up the valley side by side, a stream tumbling between them. Thomas had not crossed the bridge when Bertie started with a roar and soon shot ahead. Excited passengers in train and bus cheered and shouted across the valley. Now Thomas reached his full speed, and foot by foot, yard by yard, he gained till they were running level. Bertie tried hard, but Thomas was too fast. Slowly but surely he drew ahead, till whistling triumphantly he plunged into the tunnel, leaving Bertie toiling far behind. I've done it, panted Thomas in the tunnel. We've done it, hooray, chanted Annie and Clarabel, and whistling proudly they whooshed out of the tunnel into the last station. The passengers gave Thomas 3 cheers and told the station master and the porters all about the race. When Bertie came in, they gave him 3 cheers too. "Well done, Thomas," said Bertie. "That was fun, but to beat you over that hill, I should have to grow wings and be an aeroplane." Thomas and Bertie now keep each other very busy. Bertie finds people in the villages who want to go by train and takes them to Thomas, while Thomas brings people to the station for Bertie to take home. They often talk about their race, but Bertie's passengers don't like being bounced like peas in a frying pan, and the Fat Controller has warned Thomas about what happens to engines who race at dangerous speeds. So, although, between you and me, they would like to have another race, I don't think they ever will. Troublesome Engines. Dear friends, news from the line has not been good. The Fat Controller has been having trouble. A short while ago he gave Henry a coat of green paint, and as soon as he got his old colour back again, Henry became conceited. Gordon and James too have been getting above themselves. I'm glad to say, however, that the Fat Controller has, quite kindly but very firmly, put them in their place, and the trains are running as usual. I hope you'll like meeting Percy. We should be hearing more of him later. The Author. Henry and the Elephant. Henry and Gordon were lonely when Thomas left the yard to run his branch line. They missed him very much. They had more work to do. They couldn't wait in the shed till it was time and find their coaches at the platform. They had to fetch them. They didn't like that. Edward sometimes did odd jobs. So did James, but James soon started grumbling too. The Fat Controller kindly gave Henry and Gordon new coats of paint. Henry chose green, but they still grumbled dreadfully. "We get no rest, they complained, as they clanked about the yard. But the coaches only laughed. "You're lazy and slack, they answered in their quiet, rude way. But when a circus came to town, the engines forgot they were tired. They all wanted to shunt the special trucks and coaches. They were dreadfully jealous of James when the Fat Controller told him to pull the train when the circus went away. However, they soon forgot about the animals, as they had plenty of work to do. One morning, Henry was told to take some workmen to a tunnel which was blocked. He grumbled away to find 2 trucks to carry the workmen and their tools. Pushing trucks, he muttered in a sulky sort of way. They stopped outside the tunnel and tried to look through it, but it was quite dark. No daylight shone from the other end. The workmen took their tools and went inside. Suddenly, with a shout, they all ran out, looking frightened. "We went to the block and started to dig, but it grunted and moved," they said. "Rubbish," said the foreman. "It's not rubbish. It's big and alive. We're not going in there again." "Right," said the foreman. "I'll ride in a truck, and Henry shall push it out." "Wheesh," said Henry, unhappily. He hated tunnels. He'd been shut up in one once, but this was worse. Something big and alive was inside. "Beep, beep, 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 beep," he whistled. "I don't want to go in." "Neither do I," said his driver, "but we must clear the line." Oh dear, puffed Henry as they slowly advanced into the darkness. Bump. Henry's driver shut off steam at once. "Help! Help! We're going back!" wailed Henry, and slowly moving out into the daylight came first Henry, then the trucks, and last of all, pushing hard and rather cross, came a large elephant. "Well, I never did," said the foreman. "It's an elephant from the circus." Henry's driver put on his brakes, and a man ran to telephone for the keeper. The elephant stopped pushing and came towards them. They gave him some sandwiches and cake, so he forgot he was cross and remembered he was hungry. He drank 3 buckets of water without stopping, and was just going to drink another when Henry let off steam. The elephant jumped and whoosh! He squirted the water over Henry by mistake. Poor Henry! When the keeper came, the workmen rode home happily in the trucks, laughing at their adventure, but Henry was very cross. "An elephant pushed me, an elephant hooshed me," he hissed. He was sulky all day, and his coaches had an uncomfortable time. In the shed, he told Gordon and James about the elephant, and I'm sorry to say that instead of laughing and telling him not to be silly, they looked sad and said, "You poor engine, You have been badly treated." Tenders and turntables. The big stations at both ends of the line each have a turntable. The Fat Controller had them made so that Edward, Henry, Gordon and James can be turned round. It is dangerous for tender engines to go fast backwards. Tank engines like Thomas don't need turntables. They can go just as well backwards as forwards. But if you had heard Gordon talking a short while ago, you would have thought that the Fat Controller had given him a tender just to show how important he was. "You don't understand, little Thomas," said Gordon. "We tender engines have a position to keep up. You haven't a tender, and that makes a difference. It doesn't matter where you go, but we are important. And for the Fat Controller to make us shunt trucks, fetch coaches, and go on some of those dirty sidings, it's not the proper thing." And Gordon puffed away in a dignified manner. Thomas chuckled and went off with Annie and Clarabel. Arrived at the terminus, Gordon waited till all the passengers had got out. Then, groaning and grumbling, he shunted the coaches to another platform. "Disgraceful, disgraceful," he hissed as he ran backwards to the turntable. The turntable was in a windy place, close to the sea. It was only just big enough for Gordon, and if he was not on it just right, he put it out of balance and made it difficult to turn. Today, Gordon was in a bad temper, and the wind was blowing fiercely. His driver tried to make him stop in the right place. Backwards and forwards they went, but Gordon wasn't trying. At last Gordon's driver gave it up. The fireman tried to turn the handle, but Gordon's weight and the strong wind prevented him. The driver, some platelayers, and the fireman all tried together. "Oh, it's no good," they said at last, mopping their faces. "Your tender upsets the balance. If you were a nice tank engine, you'd be all right. Now you'll have to pull the next train backwards." Gordon came to the platform. Some little boys shouted, "Come on, quick! Here's a new tank engine!" "What a swizz," they said when they came near. "It's only Gordon, back to front." Gordon hissed emotionally. He puffed to the junction. "Hello," called Thomas. "Playing tank engines? Sensible engine. Take my advice, scrap your tender and have a nice bunker instead." Gordon snorted, but didn't answer. Even James laughed when he saw him. "Take care," hissed Gordon. "You might stick too." "No fear," chuckled James. "I'm not so fat as you." "I mustn't stick," thought James anxiously as he ran to the turntable later. He stopped on just the right place to balance the table. It could now swing easily. His fireman turned the handle. James turned much too easily. The wind puffed him round like a top. He couldn't stop. At last the wind died down, and James stopped turning, but not before Gordon, who had been turned on the loop line, had seen him. "Well, well," he said, "are you playing roundabouts?" Poor James, feeling quite giddy, rolled off to the shed without a word. That night the three engines had an indignation meeting. "It's shameful to treat tender engines like this. Henry gets whooshed by elephants. Gordon has to go backwards, and people think he's a tank engine. James spins round like a top, and everyone laughs at us. And added to that, the Fat Controller makes us shunt in dirty sidings." "Eeh," said all three engines together. "Listen," said Gordon. He whispered something to the others. "We'll do it tomorrow. The Fat Controller will look silly." Trouble in the shed. The Fat Controller sat in his office and listened. The Fat Controller frowned and said, "What a nuisance passengers are! How can I work with all this noise?" The station-master knocked and came in, looking worried. "There's trouble in the shed, sir. Henry is sulking, there is no train, and the passengers are saying this is a bad railway." "Indeed," said the Fat Controller. "We cannot allow that. Will you quieten the passengers, please? I will go and speak to Henry." He found Henry, Gordon, and James looking sulky. "Come along, Henry," he said. "It's time your train was ready." "Henry's not going," said Gordon rudely. "We won't shunt like common tank engines. We are important tender engines. You fetch our coaches and we will pull them. Tender engines don't shunt." And all three engines let off steam in a cheeky way. "Oh, indeed," said the Fat Controller severely. "We'll see about that. Engines on my railway do as they are told." He hurried away, climbed into his car, and drove to find Edward. "The yard has never been the same since Thomas left," he thought sadly. Edward was shunting. "Leave those trucks, please, Edward. I want you to push coaches for me in the yard." "Thank you, sir. That'll be a nice change." "That's a good engine," said the Fat Controller kindly. "Off you go, then." So Edward found coaches for the three engines, and that day the trains ran as usual. But when the Fat Controller came next morning, Edward looked unhappy. Gordon came clanking past, hissing rudely. "Bless me," said the Fat Controller, "what a noise!" "They all hiss me, sir," answered Edward sadly. "They say tender engines don't shunt, and last night they said I had black wheels. I haven't, have I, sir?" "No, Edward, you have nice blue ones, and I'm proud of you. Tender engines do shunt, but all the same you would be happier in your own yard. We need a tank engine here." He went to an engine workshop, and they showed him all sorts of tank engines. There were big ones and little ones. Some looked happy, and some sad, and some looked at him anxiously, hoping he would choose them. At last he saw a smart little green engine with 4 wheels. "That's the one," he thought. "If I choose you, will you work hard?" "Oh, sir, yes, sir." "That's a good engine. I'll call you Percy." "Yes, sir. Thank you, sir," said Percy happily. So he bought Percy and drove him back to the yard. "Edward," he called, "here's Percy. Will you show him everything?" Percy soon learned what he had to do, and they had a happy afternoon. Once Henry came by, hissing as usual. "Wheesh!" said Percy suddenly. Henry jumped and ran back to the shed. "How beautifully you wheeshed him," laughed Edward. "I can't wheesh like that." "Oh," said Percy modestly, "that's nothing. You should hear them in the workshop. You have to wheesh loudly to make yourself heard." Next morning Thomas arrived. "The Fat Controller sent for me. I expect he wants help," he said importantly to Edward. "Shh, here he comes." "Well done, Thomas. You've been quick. Listen. Henry, Gordon, and James are sulking. They say they won't shunt like common tank engines, so I have shut them up, and I want you both to run the line." "Common tank engines, indeed," snorted Thomas. "We'll show them. And Percy here will help too," said the Fat Controller. "Oh, sir, yes, sir, please, sir," answered Percy excitedly. Edward and Thomas worked the line. Starting at opposite ends, they pulled the trains, whistling cheerfully to each other as they passed. Percy sometimes puffed along the branch line. Thomas was anxious, but both driver and Gar promised to take good care of Annie and Clarabel. There were fewer trains, but the passengers didn't mind. They knew the 3 other engines were having a lesson. Henry, Gordon, and James stayed shut in the shed and were cold, lonely, and miserable. They wished now they hadn't been so silly. Percy runs away. Henry, Gordon, and James were shut up for several days. At last the Fat Controller opened the shed. "I hope you are sorry," he said sternly, "and understand you are not so important after all. Thomas, Edward and Percy have worked the line very nicely. They need a change, and I will let you out if you promise to be good." "Yes, sir," said the 3 engines. "We will." "That's right, but please remember that this no-shunting nonsense must stop." He told Edward, Thomas and Percy that they could go and play on the branch line for a few days. They ran off happily and found Annie and Clarabel at the junction. The 2 coaches were so pleased to see Thomas again, and he took them for a run at once. Edward and Percy played with trucks. "Stop, stop, stop!" screamed the trucks as they were pushed into their proper sidings, but the 2 engines laughed and went on shunting till the trucks were tidily arranged. Next, Edward took some empty trucks to the quarry, and Percy was left alone. Percy didn't mind that a bit. He liked watching trains and being cheeky to the engines. "Hurry, hurry, hurry!" he would call to them. Gordon, Henry and James got very cross. After a while he took some trucks over the main line and to another siding, and when they were tidy he ran onto the main line again and waited for the signalman to set the points so that he could cross back to the yard. Edward had warned Percy, "Be careful on the main line. Whistle to tell the signalman you are there." But Percy didn't remember to whistle, and the signalman was so busy and forgot Percy. Bells rang in the signal box. The man answered, saying the line was clear, and set the signals for the next train. Percy waited and waited. The points were still against him. He looked along the main line. Beep, beep! He whistled in horror, for rushing straight towards him was Gordon with the express. "Boop, boop, 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 boop," whistled Gordon. His driver shut off steam and applied the brakes. Percy's driver turned on full steam. "Back, Percy, back!" he urged. But Percy's wheels wouldn't turn quickly. Gordon was coming so fast that it seemed he couldn't stop. With eyes shut, Percy waited for the crash. His driver and fireman jumped out. "Ooh!" groaned Gordon. "Get out of my way!" Percy opened his eyes. Gordon had stopped with Percy's buffers a few inches from his own. But Percy had begun to move. "I won't stay here. I'll run away," he puffed. He was soon cleared of the station and running as fast as he could. He went through Edward Station whistling loudly and was so frightened that he ran right up Gordon's Hill without stopping. He was tired then and wanted to stop, but he couldn't. He had no driver to shut off steam and to apply the brakes. "I shall have to run till my wheels wear out," he thought sadly. "Oh dear! Oh dear! I want to stop, I want to stop," he puffed in a tired sort of way. He passed another signal box. "I know just what you want, little Percy," called the man kindly. He set the points, and Percy puffed wearily onto a nice empty siding, ending in a big bank of earth. Percy was too tired now to care where he went. "I want to stop, I want to stop, I have stopped," he puffed thankfully as his bunker buried itself in the bank. "Never mind, Percy," said the workman as they dug him out. "You shall have a drink and some coal, and then you'll feel better." Presently Gordon arrived. "Well done, Percy. You started so quickly that you stopped a nasty accident." "I'm sorry I was cheeky," said Percy. "You were clever to stop." Percy now works in the yard and finds coaches for the trains. He's still cheeky because he's that sort of engine, but he's always most careful when he goes on the main line. Henry, the Green Engine. Dear friends, here is more news from the region. All the engines now have numbers as well as names. You will see them in the pictures. They are as follows: Thomas 1, Edward 2, Henry 3, Gordon 4, James 5, Percy 6. Then I expect you were sorry for Henry, who was often ill and unable to work. He gave Sir Topham Hatt, who is, of course, our fat controller, a lot of worry. Now Henry has a new shape and is ready for anything. These stories tell you all about it. The author. Coal. I suffer dreadfully, and no one cares. Rubbish, Henry, snorted James. You don't work hard enough. Henry was bigger than James, but smaller than Gordon. Sometimes he could pull trains, sometimes he had no strength at all. The fat controller spoke to him too. You're too expensive, Henry. You've had lots of new parts and new paint, but they've done you no good. If we can't make you better, we must get another engine instead of you. This made Henry, his driver, and his fireman very sad. The fat controller was waiting when Henry came to the platform. He'd taken off his hat and coat and put on overalls. He climbed the footplate, and Henry started. Henry is a bad steamer, said the fireman. I build up his fire, but it doesn't give enough heat. Henry tried very hard, but it was no good. He had not enough steam, and they stopped outside Edward Station. Oh dear, thought Henry sadly, I shall have to go away. Edward took charge of the train. Henry stopped behind him. What do you think is wrong, fireman? Asked the fat controller. The fireman mopped his face. Excuse me, sir, he answered, but the coal is wrong. We've had a poor lot lately, and today it's worse. The other engines can manage, they have big fireboxes. Henry's is small and can't make the heat. With Welsh coal, he'd be a different engine. It's expensive, said the fat controller thoughtfully. But Henry must have a fair chance. James shall go and fetch some. When the Welsh coal came, Henry's driver and fireman were excited. Now we'll show them, Henry, old fellow. They carefully oiled all his joints and polished his brass till it shone like gold. His fire had already been lit, so the fireman made it carefully. He put large lumps of coal like a wall round the outside. Then he covered the glowing middle part with smaller lumps. "You're spoiling my fire," complained Henry. "Wait and see," said the fireman. "We'll have a roaring fire just when we want it." He was right. When Henry reached the platform, the water was boiling nicely, and he had to let off steam to show how happy he was. He made such a noise that the fat controller came out to see him. "How are you, Henry?" "Beep, beep, beep," whistled Henry. "I feel fine." "Have you a good fire, driver?" "Never better, sir, and plenty of steam." "No record breaking," warned the fat controller, smiling. "Don't push him too hard." "Henry won't need pushing, sir. I'll have to hold him back." Henry had a lovely day. He'd never felt so well in his life. He wanted to go fast, but his driver wouldn't let him. "Steady, old fellow," he would say. "There's plenty of time." They arrived early at the junction. "Where have you been, lazybones?" asked Henry, when Thomas puffed in. "I can't wait for dawdling tank engines like you. Goodbye!" "Whoosh!" said Thomas to Annie and Clarabel as Henry disappeared. "Have you ever seen anything like it?" Both Annie and Clarabel agreed that they never had. The Flying Kipper. Lots of ships use the harbour at the big station by the sea. The passenger ships have spotless paint and shining brass. Other ships, though smaller and dirtier, are important too. They take coal, machinery and other things abroad and bring back meat, timber and things we need. Fishing boats also come there. They unload their fish on the quay, and some of it is sent to shops in the town, and some goes in a special train to other places far away. The railwaymen call this train the Flying Kipper. One winter evening, Henry's driver said, "We'll be out early tomorrow. We've got to take the Flying Kipper." "Don't tell Gordon," he whispered, "but I think if we pull the kipper nicely, the Fat Controller will let us pull the express." "Hooray!" cried Henry, excited. "That will be lovely!" He was ready at 5 o'clock. There was snow and frost. Men hustled and shouted, loading the vans with crates of fish. The last door banged, the guard showed his green lamp, and they were off. "Come on, come on. Don't be silly," puffed Henry to the vans as his wheels slipped on the icy rails. The vans shuddered and groaned. "Trot, trick, trot, trick, all right, they answered grudgingly. That is better," puffed Henry more happily as the train began to gather speed. Thick clouds of smoke and steam poured from his funnel into the cold air, and when his fireman put on more coal, the fire's light shone brightly on the snow around. "Hurry, hurry, hurry," panted Henry. They whooshed under bridges and clattered through stations, green signal lights showing as they passed. They were going well. The light grew better and a yellow signal appeared ahead. "Distant signal up," thought Henry. "Caution." His driver, shutting off steam, prepared to stop, but the home signal was down. "All clear, Henry. Away we go." They couldn't know the points on the main line to a siding were frozen, and that the signal had been set at danger. A fall of snow had forced it down. A goods train waited in the siding to let the flying kipper pass. The driver and fireman were drinking cocoa in the brake van. The guard pulled out his watch. "The kipper is due," he said. "Who cares?" said the fireman. "This is good cocoa." The driver got up. "Come on, fireman, back to our engine." "Hey," the fireman grumbled, "I haven't finished my cocoa yet." A sudden crash. The brake van broke. The three men shot in the air like jacks in the box and landed in the snow outside. Henry's driver and fireman jumped clear just before the crash. The fireman fell headfirst into a heap of snow. He kicked so hard that the driver couldn't pull him out. Henry sprawled on his side. He looked surprised. The goods train fireman waved his empty mug. "You clumsy great engine! The best cup of cocoa I ever had, and you bump into me and spill it all." "Never mind your cocoa, fireman," laughed his driver. "Run and telephone the breakdown gang." The gang soon cleared the line, but they had hard work lifting Henry to the rails. The Fat Controller came to see them. "The signal was down, sir," said Henry nervously. "Cheer up, Henry. Wasn't your fault. Ice and snow caused the accident. I'm sending you to Crewe. A fine place for sick engines. They'll give you a new shape and a larger firebox. Then you'll feel a different engine and won't need special coal any more. Won't that be nice?" "Yes, sir," said Henry doubtfully. Henry liked being at Crewe, but was glad to come home. A crowd of people waited to see him arrive in his new shape. He looked so splendid and strong that they gave him 3 cheers. "Beep, beep, 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 beep. Thank you very much," he whistled happily. "I'm sorry to say that a lot of little boys are often late for school because they wait to see Henry go by. They often see him pulling the express, and he does it so well that Gordon is jealous. But that is another story." Gordon's whistle. Gordon was cross. "Why should Henry have a new shape?" he grumbled. "A shape good enough for me is good enough for him. He goes gallivanting off to Crewe, leaving us to do his work. It's disgraceful. And there's another thing. Henry whistles too much. No respectable engine ever whistles loudly at stations." "It isn't wrong," said Gordon, "but we just don't do it." Poor Henry didn't feel happy any more. "Never mind," whispered Percy. "I'm glad you're home again. I like your whistling." "Goodbye, Henry," called Gordon next morning as he left the shed. "We're glad to have you with us again, but be sure and remember what I said about whistling." Later on, Henry took a slow train and presently stopped at Edward's station. "Hello, Henry," said Edward. "You look splendid. I was pleased to hear your happy whistle yesterday." "Thank you, Edward," smiled Henry. "Shh! Can you hear something?" Edward listened. Far away, but getting louder and louder, was the sound of an engine's whistle. "It sounds like Gordon," said Edward, "and it ought to be Gordon, but Gordon never whistles like that." It was Gordon. He came rushing down the hill at a tremendous rate. He didn't look at Henry, and he didn't look at Edward. He was purple in the boiler and whistling fit to burst. He screamed through the station and disappeared. "Well," said Edward, looking at Henry. "It isn't wrong," chuckled Henry, "but we just don't do it." And he told Edward what Gordon had said. Meanwhile, Gordon screeched along the line. People came out of their houses. Air raid sirens started. 5 fire brigades got ready to go out. Horses upset their carts, and old ladies dropped their parcels. At a big station, the noise was awful. Porters and passengers held their ears. The fat controller held his ears too. He gave a lot of orders, but no one could hear them, and Gordon went on whistling. At last, he clambered into Gordon's cab. "Take him away," he bellowed, "and stop that noise." Still whistling, Gordon puffed sadly away. He whistled as he crossed the points. He whistled on the siding. He was still whistling as the last deafened passenger left the station. Then 2 fitters climbed up and knocked his whistle valve into place, and there was silence. Gordon slunk into the shed. He was glad it was empty. The others came in later. "It isn't wrong," murmured Henry to no one in particular, "but we just don't do it." No one mentioned whistles. Percy and the Trousers. On cold mornings, Percy often saw workmen wearing scarves. "My funnel's cold, my funnel's cold," he would puff. "I want a scarf, I want a scarf." "Rubbish, Percy," said Henry one day. "Engines don't want scarves." "Engines with proper funnels do," said Percy in his cheeky way. "You've only got a small one." Henry snorted. He was proud of his short, neat funnel. Just then a train came in, and Percy, still puffing, "I want a scarf, I want a scarf," went to take the coaches to their siding. His driver always shut off steam just outside the station, and Henry would try to surprise the coaches by coming in as quietly as he could. 2 porters were taking some luggage across the line. They had a big load and were walking backwards to see that none fell off the trolley. Percy arrived so quietly that the porters didn't hear him till the trolley was on the line. The porters jumped clear. The trolley disappeared with a crunch. Boxes and bags burst in all directions. "Ooh!" groaned Percy, and stopped. Sticky streams of red and yellow jam trickled down his face. A top hat hung on his lamp iron. Clothes, hats, boots, shoes, skirts and blouses stuck to his front. A pair of striped trousers coiled lovingly round his funnel. They were grey no longer. Angry passengers looked at their broken trunks. The fat controller seized the top hat. "Mine," he said crossly. "Percy," he shouted, "look at this." "Yes, sir, I am, sir," a muffled voice replied. "My best trousers, too." "Yes, sir, please, sir," said Percy nervously. "I am very cross," said the fat controller. "We must pay the passengers for their spoilt clothes. My hat is dented, and my trousers are ruined, all because you will come into the station as if you were playing grandmother's steps with the coaches." The driver unwound the trousers. The fat controller waved them away. "Percy wanted a scarf. He shall have my trousers for a scarf. They will keep him warm." Percy wore them back to the yard. He doesn't like scarves now. Henry Sneeze. One lovely Saturday morning, Henry was puffing along. The sun shone, the fields were green, the birds sang. Henry had plenty of steam in his boiler, and he was feeling happy. "I feel so well, I feel so well," he sang. Trickety-trock, hummed his coaches. Henry saw some boys on a bridge. "Beep, beep, hello," he whistled cheerfully. "Beep, beep, beep," he called the next moment. "Oh, oh, ooh," for the boys didn't wave and take his number. They dropped stones on him instead. They were silly, stupid boys who thought it'd be fun to drop stones down his funnel. Some of the stones hit Henry's boiler and spoiled his paint. One hit the fireman on the head as he was shoveling coal, and others broke the carriage windows. "It's a shame, it's a shame," hissed Henry. "They've broken our glass, they've broken our glass," sobbed the coaches. The driver opened the first aid box, bandaged the fireman's head, and planned what he was going to do. They stopped the train, and the guard asked if any passengers were hurt. No one was hurt, but everyone was cross. They saw the fireman's bumped head and told him what to do for it, and they looked at Henry's paint. "Call the police!" they shouted angrily. "No," said the driver, "leave it to Henry and me. We'll teach those lads a lesson." "What will you do?" they asked. "Can you keep a secret?" "Yes, yes," they all said. "Well then," said the driver, "Henry is going to sneeze at them." "What?" cried all the passengers. The driver laughed. "Henry draws air in through his fire, and he puffs it out with smoke and steam. When he puffs hard, the air blows ashes from his fire into his smoke box, and these ashes sometimes prevent him puffing properly. When your nose is blocked, you sometimes sneeze. If Henry's smoke box is blocked, I can make air and steam blow the ashes out through his funnel. We'll do it at the bridge and startle those boys." Henry puffed onto the terminus, where he had a rest. Then he took the train back. Lots of people were waiting at the station just before the bridge. They wanted to see what would happen. "Henry has plenty of ashes," said the driver. "Please keep all windows shut till we have passed the bridge. Henry is as excited as we are, aren't you, old fellow?" And he patted Henry's boiler. Henry didn't answer. He was feeling stuffed up, but he winked at his driver like this. The guard's flag waved, his whistle blew, and they were off. Soon in the distance they saw the bridge. There were the boys, and they all had stones. "Are you ready, Henry?" said his driver. "Sneeze hard when I tell you." "Now," he said, and turned the handle. "A-tisha, a-tisha, a-tishoo!" Smoke and steam and ashes spouted from his funnel. They went all over the bridge and all over the boys, who ran away as black as soot. "Well done, Henry," laughed his driver. "They won't drop stones on engines again. Your coat is all black, but we'll rub you down and paint your scratches, and you'll be as good as new tomorrow." Henry has never again sneezed under a bridge. The fat controller doesn't like it. His smoke box is always cleaned in the yard while he's resting. He has now gone under more bridges than he can count, but from that day to this, there have been no more boys with stones. Toby the Tram Engine. Dear friends, poor Thomas has been in trouble. So the fat controller asked Toby to come and help run the branch line. Thomas and Toby are very good friends. Toby is a funny little engine with a queer shape. He works very hard, and we are fond of him. We hope you like him too. The Author. Toby and the Stout Gentleman. Toby is a tram engine. He's short and sturdy. He has cow catchers and side plates and doesn't look like a steam engine at all. He takes trucks from farms and factories to the main line, and the big engines take them to London and elsewhere. His tram line runs along roads and through fields and villages. Toby rings his bell cheerfully to everyone he meets. He has a coach called Henrietta, who has seen better days. She complains because she has few passengers. Toby is attached to Henrietta and always takes her with him. She might be useful one day, he says. It's not fair at all, grumbles Henrietta, as the buses roar past full of passengers. She remembers that she used to be full, and 9 trucks would rattle behind her. Now there are only 3 or 4, for the farms and factories send their goods mostly by lorry. Toby is always careful on the road. The cars, buses and lorries often have accidents. Toby hasn't had an accident for years, but the buses are crowded and Henrietta is empty. I can't understand it, says Toby, the tram engine. People come to see Toby, but they come by bus. They stare at him. Isn't he quaint, they say, and laugh. They make him so cross. One day a car stopped close by, and a little boy jumped out. "Come on, Bridget," he called to his sister, and together they ran across to Toby. 2 ladies and a stout gentleman followed. The gentleman looked important, but nice. The children ran back. "Come on, grandfather, do look at this engine," and seizing his hands they almost dragged him along. "That's a tram engine, Stephen," said the stout gentleman. "Is it electric?" asked Bridget. "Oosh!" hissed Toby crossly. "Shh, shh," said his brother. "You've offended him." "But trams are electric, aren't they?" "They are mostly," the stout gentleman answered, "but this is a steam tram." "May we go in it, grandfather, please?" The guard had begun to blow his whistle. "Stop!" said the stout gentleman, and raised his hand. The guard, surprised, opened his mouth, and the whistle fell out. While he was picking it up, they all scrambled into Henrietta. "Hip, hip, hooray!" chanted Henrietta, and she rattled happily behind. Toby did not sing. "Electric indeed, electric indeed," he snorted. He was very hurt. The stout gentleman and his family got out at the junction, but waited for Toby to take them back to their car. "What is your name?" asked the stout gentleman. "Toby, sir." "Thank you, Toby, for a very nice ride." "Thank you, sir," said Toby politely. He felt better now. This gentleman, he thought, is a gentleman who knows how to speak to engines. The children came every day for a fortnight. Sometimes they rode with the guard, sometimes in empty trucks, and on the last day of all, the driver invited them into his cab. All were sorry when they had to go away. Stephen and Bridget said, "Thank you," to Toby, his driver, his fireman, and the guard. The stout gentleman gave them all a present. "Beep, beep, beep, beep," whistled Toby. "Come again soon." We will," called the children, and they waved till Toby was out of sight. The months passed. Toby had few trucks and fewer passengers. "Our last day, Toby," said his driver sadly one morning. "The manager says we must close tomorrow." That day Henrietta had more passengers than she could manage. They rode in the trucks and crowded in the brake van, and the guard hadn't enough tickets to go round. The passengers joked and sang, but Toby and his driver wished they wouldn't. "Goodbye, Toby," said the passengers afterwards. "We are sorry your line is closing down." "So am I," said Toby sadly. The last passenger left the station, and Toby puffed slowly to his shed. "Nobody wants me," he thought, and went unhappily to sleep. Next morning the shed was flung open, and he woke with a start to see his fireman dancing a jig outside. His driver, excited, waved a piece of paper. "Wake up, Toby!" they shouted, "and listen to this. It's a letter from the stout gentleman." Toby listened and— But I mustn't tell you any more, or I should spoil the next story. Thomas in Trouble. There is a line to a quarry at the end of Thomas's branch. It goes for some distance along the road. Thomas was always very careful here, in case anyone was coming. "Beep, beep, beep," he whistled. Then the people got out of the way, and he puffed slowly along, with his trucks rumbling behind him. Early one morning there was no one on the road, but a large policeman was sitting on the grass, close to the line. He was shaking a stone from his boot. Thomas liked policemen. He had been a great friend of the constable who used to live in the village, but he had just retired. Thomas expected that the new constable would be friendly too. "Beep, beep," he whistled. "Good morning." The policeman jumped and dropped his boot. He scrambled up and hopped around on one leg till he was facing Thomas. Thomas was sorry to see that he didn't look friendly at all. He was red in the face and very cross. The policeman wobbled about, trying to keep his balance. "Disgraceful," he spluttered. "I didn't sleep a wink last night, it was so quiet, and now engines come whistling suddenly behind me. My first day in the country, too." He picked up his boot and hopped over to Thomas. "Oh, I'm sorry, sir," said Thomas. "I only said good morning." The policeman grunted, and leaning against Thomas's buffer, he put his boot on. He drew himself up and pointed to Thomas. "Where's your cow-catcher?" he asked accusingly. "But I don't catch cows, sir." "Don't be funny," snapped the policeman. He looked at Thomas's wheels. "No side plates either." And he wrote in his notebook, "Engines going on public roads must have their wheels covered and a cow-catcher in front. You haven't, so you are dangerous to the public." "Rubbish," said his driver. "We've been along here hundreds of times and never had an accident." "That makes it worse," the policeman answered. He wrote "regular lawbreaker" in his book. Thomas puffed sadly away. The fat controller was having his breakfast. He was eating toast and marmalade. He had the newspaper open in front of him, and his wife had just given him some more coffee. The butler knocked and came in. "Excuse me, sir, you are wanted on the telephone." "Bother that telephone," said the fat controller. "I'm sorry, my dear," he said a few minutes later. "Thomas is in trouble with the police, and I must go at once." He gulped down his coffee and hurried from the room. At the junction, Thomas's driver told the fat controller what had happened. "Dangerous to the public, indeed. We'll see about that." And he climbed grimly into Annie, the coach. The policeman was on the platform at the other end. The fat controller spoke to him at once, and a crowd collected to listen. Other policemen came to see what was happening, and the fat controller argued with them too, but it was no good. "The law is the law," they said, "and we can't change it." The fat controller felt exhausted. He mopped his face. "I'm sorry, driver," he said. "It's no use arguing with policemen. We will have to make those cow-catcher things for Thomas, I suppose." "Everyone will laugh, sir," said Thomas sadly. "They'll say I look like a tram." The fat controller stared. Then he laughed. "Well done, Thomas. Why didn't I think of it before? We want a tram engine. When I was on holiday, I met a nice little engine called Toby. He hasn't enough work to do and needs a change. I'll write to his controller at once." A few days later, Toby arrived. "That's a good engine," said the fat controller. "I see you've brought Henrietta." "Oh, you don't mind, do you, sir?" asked Toby anxiously. "The station-master wanted to use her as a hen-house, and that would never do." "No, indeed," said the Fat Controller gravely. "We couldn't allow that." Toby made the trucks behave even better than Thomas did. At first Thomas was jealous, but he was so pleased when Toby rang his bell and made the policeman jump that they've been firm friends ever since. Dirty Objects. Toby and Henrietta take the workmen to the quarry every morning. At the junction, they often meet James. Toby and Henrietta were shabby when they first came and needed new paint. James was very rude. "Ooh, what dirty objects," he would say. At last, Toby lost patience. "James," he asked, "why are you red?" "I am a splendid engine," answered James loftily, "ready for anything. You never see my paint dirty." "Ooh," said Toby innocently, "that's why you once needed bootlaces. To be ready, I suppose." James went redder than ever and snorted off. At the end of the line, James left his coaches and got ready for his next train. It was a slow goods, stopping at every station to pick up and set down trucks. James hated slow goods trains. "Dirty trucks from dirty sidings, ugh," he grumbled. Starting with only a few, he picked up more and more trucks at each station till he had a long train. At first the trucks behaved well, but James bumped them so crossly that they determined to pay him out. Presently, rumbling over the viaduct, they approached the top of Gordon's Hill. Heavy goods trains halt here to pin down their brakes. James had had an accident with trucks before, and should have remembered this. "Wait, James, wait," said his driver, but James wouldn't wait. He was too busy thinking what he would say to Toby when they next met. Too late he saw where he was, and tried to stop. "Hurrah, hurrah!" laughed the trucks, and banging their buffers, they pushed him down the hill. The guard tightened his brakes until they screamed. "On, on, on!" yelled the trucks. "I've got to stop, I've got to stop!" groaned James, and setting his brakes, he managed to check the truck's mad rush, but they were still going much too fast to stop in time. Through the station they thundered and lurched into the yard. James shut his eyes. There was a bursting crash, and something sticky splashed all over him. He had run into 2 tar wagons and was black from smokebox to cab. James was more dirty than hurt, but the tar wagons and some of the trucks were all to pieces. The breakdown train was in the yard, and they soon tidied up the mess. Toby and Percy were sent to help, and came as quickly as they could. "Oh, look here, Percy," exclaimed Toby. "Whatever is that dirty object?" "That's James, didn't you know?" "It's James' shape," said Toby thoughtfully, "but James is a splendid red engine. You never see his paint dirty." James shut his eyes and pretended he hadn't heard. They cleared away the unhurt trucks and helped James home. The Fat Controller met them. "Well done, Percy and Toby," he said. He turned to James. "Fancy letting your trucks run away with you. I am surprised. You're not fit to be seen. You must be cleaned at once. Toby shall have a coat of paint. Chocolate and blue, I think. Please, sir, can Henrietta have one too?" "Certainly, Toby," he smiled. "She shall have brown, like Annie and Clarabel." "Oh, thank you, sir. She will be pleased." Toby ran home happily to tell her the news. Mrs. Kindly's Christmas. It was nearly Christmas. Annie and Clarabel were packed full of people and parcels. Thomas was having very hard work. Come on, he puffed. "We're feeling so full," grumbled the coaches. Thomas looked at the hill ahead. Can I do it, he puffed anxiously. Suddenly he saw a handkerchief waving from a cottage window. He felt better at once. "Yes, I can! Yes, I can!" he puffed bravely. He pulled his hardest and was soon through the tunnel and resting in the station. "That was Mrs. Kindly who waved to you, Thomas," his driver told him. "She has to stay in bed all day." "Poor lady," said Thomas. "I am sorry for her." Engines have heavy loads at Christmas time, but Thomas and Toby didn't mind the hard work when they saw Mrs. Kindly waving. But then it began to rain. It rained for days and days. Thomas didn't like it, nor did his driver. "Off we go, Thomas," he would say. "Pull hard and get home quickly. Mrs. Kindly won't wave today." But whether she waved or not, they always whistled when they passed the little lonely cottage. Its white walls stood out against the dark background of the hills. "Hello!" exclaimed Thomas's fireman one day. "Look at that!" The driver came across the cab. "Something's wrong there," he said. Hanging, flapping and bedraggled from a window of the cottage was something that looked like a large red flag. "Mrs. Kindly needs help, I expect," said the driver, and put on the brakes. Thomas gently stopped. The guard came squelching through the rain up to Thomas's cab, and the driver pointed to the flag. "See if a doctor's on the train, and ask him to go to the cottage. Then walk back to the station and tell them we've stopped." The fireman went to see if the line was clear in front. 2 passengers left the train and climbed to the cottage, and then the fireman returned. "We'll back down to the station," said the driver, "so that Thomas can get a good start." "We shan't get up the hill," the fireman answered. "Come and see what's happened." They walked along the line, round the bend. "Jiminy Christmas!" exclaimed the driver. "Go back to the train. I'm going to the cottage." He found the doctor with Mrs. Kindly. "Silly of me to faint," she said. "You saw the red dressing-gown? You're all safe?" asked Mrs. Kindly. "Yes," smiled the driver. "I've come to thank you. There was a landslide in the cutting, Doctor, and Mrs. Kindly saw it from her window and stopped us. She's saved our lives." "God bless you, ma'am," said the driver, and tiptoed from the room. They cleared the line by Christmas Day, and the sun shone as a special train puffed up from the junction. First came Toby, then Thomas with Annie and Clarabel, and last of all, but very pleased at being allowed to come, was Henrietta. The fat controller was there, and lots of other people who wanted to say thank you to Mrs. Kindly. "Beep, beep, 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 Happy Christmas!" whistled the engines as they reached the place. The people got out and climbed to the cottage. Thomas and Toby wished they could go too. Mrs. Kindly's husband met them at the door. The fat controller, Thomas's driver, fireman and guard went upstairs, while the others stood in the sunshine below the window. The driver gave her a new dressing-gown to replace the one spoilt by the rain. The guard brought her some grapes, and the fireman gave her some woolly slippers and promised to bring some coal as a present from Thomas next time they passed. Mrs. Kindly was very pleased with her presents. "You're very good to me," she said. "The passengers and I," said the fat controller, "hope you will accept these tickets for the South Coast, Mrs. Kindly, and get really well in the sunshine. We cannot thank you enough for preventing that accident. I hope we have not tired you. Goodbye and a happy Christmas." Then, going quietly downstairs, they joined the group outside the window and sang some carols before returning to the train. Mrs. Kindly is now at Bournemouth, getting better every day, and Thomas and Toby are looking forward to the time when they can welcome her home. That was The Railway Series, Volume 1 by the Reverend W. Awdry, read by Bruce Alexander. Produced by David Smith at Wardour Studios, with post-production by Tom Berry, Will Chapman and Lucy Rowe. Casting by Rebecca Fortain. An audiobook from Far Shore, an imprint of HarperCollins. Based on the Railway series by the Reverend W. Awdry. Copyright 2022, Gulaine Thomas Limited. Copyright 2023, Gulaine Thomas Limited. Thomas the Tank Engine and Friends and Thomas and Friends are trademarks of Gulaine Thomas Limited. Production copyright 2022 by HarperCollins Publishers. Production copyright 2023 by HarperCollins Publishers. All rights reserved. Thank you for listening.